Bank called about my reverse mortgage that I never applied for. Turned out Dad forged everything and already spent $45,000 of my home equity. Hey friends. Got a sec? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. It's quick for you, but it really means a lot to us. Alright, let's dive into today's story. I'm sitting in my kitchen right now, hands shaking as I type this, staring at documents that have completely upended my life. I need to write this out because I genuinely don't know if I'm losing my mind or if this is as insane as it seems. I'm James, 26M, and I bought my first house 2 years ago. Nothing fancy, a modest 3-bedroom ranch in the suburbs about 40 minutes from where I grew up. I saved for 6 years, worked 2 jobs through most of my early 20s, and finally scraped together enough for a down payment. That house represented everything I'd worked for. Financial independence. Stability. A place that was mine. My father, Robert, is 58. He's always been what I'll call financially creative. Growing up, there were always schemes, always shortcuts, always some new plan that would solve all our problems. My mother left when I was 12, and I think part of why she left was the constant financial chaos. Dad raised me and my younger brother Michael on his own, and I'll give him credit. We never went hungry, always had a roof over our heads. But there was always this underlying current of instability, of money appearing and disappearing in ways I never quite understood as a kid. Michael is 24, and he's always been Dad's favorite. I don't say that with bitterness, it's just a fact we've all accepted. Michael can do no wrong. When Michael dropped out of college after 1 semester, Dad called it finding his own path. When I took 5 years to finish my degree because I was working full-time, Dad asked why it was taking so long. Michael has been living with Dad for the past 3 years, paying minimal rent, doing various odd jobs that never seem to last more than a few months. I've kept my distance from Dad's financial orbit intentionally. I don't lend him money. I don't co-sign anything. I learned early that getting financially entangled with my father was a recipe for disaster. I've watched him burn through relationships with friends, extended family, even his own siblings, leaving a trail of unpaid debts and broken promises. 3 months ago, Dad asked if he could use my address for some mail he was expecting. He said he was having issues with package theft in his neighborhood and had some important documents coming. I thought he meant a few pieces of mail, maybe some banking statements or insurance documents. I said yes because, despite everything, he's still my father, and it seemed like a small favor. That was my first mistake. The documents started arriving about 6 weeks ago. Official-looking envelopes from banks, mortgage companies, financial institutions I'd never heard of. At first, I thought they were just junk mail, pre-approved credit card offers, that kind of thing. I set them aside in a pile on my kitchen counter, figuring I'd drop them off to Dad the next time I saw him. But then yesterday, I came home from work to find a certified letter that required my signature. The return address was from First National Lending Group. I signed for it, curious about what could be so important. I opened it right there at my front door. The letter was addressed to me. It referenced a reverse mortgage agreement signed 4 months ago. It included an account number, a loan amount, and a schedule of disbursements. The property address listed was my house. My actual house. According to this letter, I had taken out a reverse mortgage for $180,000 against my home equity. The letter was a routine statement, showing that $45,000 had already been disbursed in 3 separate payments over the past 3 months. I read it 3 times. Then I called the number on the letterhead. The customer service representative was polite and professional. She confirmed that yes, there was indeed a reverse mortgage account in my name, tied to my property. The loan had been originated by a mortgage broker they worked with, all the documentation had been properly filed, and the title company had processed everything according to standard procedures. But I never applied for a reverse mortgage, I told her, my voice rising despite my attempts to stay calm. I never signed anything. I'm 26 years old, I don't even qualify for a reverse mortgage. There was a pause. Sir, according to our records, you're 58 years old. Your date of birth is listed as April 12, 1967. My father's birthday. The conversation devolved quickly after that. The representative couldn't give me more details over the phone without verifying information I didn't have because I hadn't actually opened the account. She suggested I come to a branch office with identification to discuss the matter in person. I made an appointment for this morning. After I hung up, I went to that pile of mail I'd been setting aside. I opened every single envelope. Credit card statements in my name, showing thousands in charges I never made. A personal loan statement from an online lender. A notice from a payday loan company about a missed payment. Applications for new credit cards. Denial letters for loan applications. Collection notices for accounts I'd never opened. All in my name. All using my social security number, which Dad would have had access to from my childhood. All sent to my address at my request, which meant I'd essentially given him permission to intercept mail that should have raised red flags months ago. I didn't sleep last night. I spent hours on my laptop, pulling my credit report. My credit score had dropped 140 points. There were 7 hard inquiries in the past 4 months. Accounts I'd never opened showing balances in collections. This morning, I went to the bank. I brought my driver's license, my social security card, my passport, my original mortgage documents from when I bought the house 2 years ago, and printed copies of everything I'd found. The branch manager, a woman named Patricia who looked like she'd seen some things in her career, listened to my story with an increasingly grim expression. She pulled up my account on her computer, reviewed the documents I'd brought, and then excused herself to make some phone calls. When she came back 20 minutes later, she had her supervisor with her. "Mr. Anderson," the supervisor said, "this is clearly a case of identity theft. The signature on the loan documents doesn't match the signature on your identification. The photograph on the broker's file shows a man who is obviously not you. The birth date used for the application would make you ineligible for a reverse mortgage based on age requirements." I felt a wave of relief, followed immediately by a wave of nausea. "So the loan is fraudulent? It'll be cancelled." Patricia and her supervisor exchanged a look. "It's not quite that simple," Patricia said carefully. "Yes, this is fraud, and yes, we'll be initiating an investigation. But the loan has already been dispersed. Money has been paid out. The title on your property has been encumbered with a lien. This is going to require police involvement, legal proceedings, and quite possibly a lengthy process to unwind." "How lengthy?" "Months, potentially. Maybe longer. You'll need to file a police report for identity theft. You'll need to dispute this with the credit bureaus. You'll likely need an attorney. The bank will pursue recovery of the funds, which means investigating where the money went." I left the bank with a packet of forms, a list of steps to take, and a recommendation for a fraud attorney. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel. Then I called my father. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice cheerful. "James, good to hear from you. What's going on? We need to talk. In person. Now." Something in my tone must have registered because his voice shifted. "Is everything okay?" "No, Dad. Everything is not okay. I'll be at your house in 30 minutes. I drove to Dad's place, a small rental house about 15 minutes from mine where he and Michael have been living. My mind was racing the entire drive, trying to figure out what I was going to say, how I was going to confront him. Michael's truck was in the driveway when I arrived. Great. An audience. I didn't knock. I walked straight in. I've had a key for years, for emergencies. Dad and Michael were in the living room, some sports game on the TV. They both looked up when I came in, and I must have looked as angry as I felt because Michael immediately muted the television. "James, what's wrong?" Dad asked, standing up. I threw the stack of documents onto the coffee table. "You want to explain these?" Dad looked down at the papers, and I watched his face. I watched for surprise, for confusion, for any indication that he didn't know what I was talking about. There was none. Just a flicker of something, resignation, maybe, before he sat back down heavily on the couch. "James, let me explain. You took out a reverse mortgage on my house. Using my identity. My social security number. You committed fraud, Dad. You committed a felony." Michael's eyes went wide. "Wait, what?" "Ask him," I said, not taking my eyes off my father. "Ask him where he got $180,000 in the past 4 months." Dad ran his hand over his face. When he looked up, he had the expression I remembered from childhood, the one that preceded his explanations for why we couldn't afford something, or why we had to move, or why he needed to borrow money from my grandmother. "I was trying to help the family," he said. I actually laughed. It came out harsh and bitter. "Help the family? By stealing my identity? By taking out a fraudulent loan against my house? It's not stealing if it's family." "Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. Dad, I could lose my house over this. My credit is destroyed. There are collection accounts in my name." I had to stop and take a breath because I could feel myself starting to yell, and I didn't want to yell. I wanted to stay calm. I wanted to stay rational. "Where did the money go?" I asked, forcing my voice level. Dad looked at Michael, then back at me. "I had some debts. Some business investments that didn't pan out. I needed to consolidate, to get back on my feet. I thought I could pay it back before you even noticed. It's a reverse mortgage, Dad. You don't pay it back. It comes due when the homeowner dies or sells the property. Did you even understand what you were signing? Silence. Oh my God, I said quietly. You didn't even understand what you were doing. I understood enough, Dad said defensively. I talked to the broker, he explained everything. He said it was a way to access equity without having monthly payments. It seemed like the perfect solution. Perfect solution. I'm 26 years old. I don't have enough equity in the house for a legitimate reverse mortgage, and I don't meet the age requirement. The only way this worked is because you pretended to be me. Michael finally spoke up. Dad, is this true? Did you really do this? Michael, you don't understand the pressure I've been under, Dad said, turning to his favorite son. The debt collectors calling every day, the threats of lawsuits. Don't, I interrupted. Don't try to justify this. Dad stood up, and for a moment, I thought he was going to get angry. Instead, he just looked defeated. James, I know you're upset, but we can fix this. The bank doesn't need to know. We can work something out. The bank already knows, Dad. I went there this morning. They know it's fraud. I'm filing a police report this afternoon. His face went pale. You're going to have me arrested? Your own father. You committed identity theft. You stole from me. What did you think was going to happen? I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd want to help your family. That's when something inside me just broke. All the years of watching him make bad decisions, of bailing him out emotionally if not financially, of making excuses for him, it all came crashing down. I bought a house, I said quietly, because I wanted stability. I wanted something that was mine, that I'd earned, that couldn't be taken away. And you, my own father, you stole it from me. You put my home at risk. You ruined my credit. You committed crimes in my name. James, I'm done. I'm filing the police report. I'm hiring an attorney. And I'm getting security cameras for my house because I clearly can't trust you. I turned to leave, and Dad called after me. They're going to demand payment on that mortgage, you know. When they investigate, when they freeze the account, they're going to want their money back. The lien is on your property, James. You could lose the house either way. I stopped at the door. Then I'll lose it. At least I'll lose it knowing I did the right thing instead of helping you cover up fraud. Wait, Michael said, and something in his voice made me turn around. He was looking at Dad with an expression I couldn't quite read. Dad, did you tell him the rest? There's more, I asked. Dad and Michael exchanged a look. Tell him, Michael said. Dad sat back down on the couch. The broker who helped me with the reverse mortgage suggested that since there would be questions about the property, about the legitimacy of the loan, that it would be helpful to have family members established as residents. To show that the property was being used, that there was an ongoing household. The room tilted slightly. What are you saying? He's saying, Michael said, his voice tight, that Dad planned to have me move into your house. To establish residency. To make it look like we were all living there as family, sharing the property. I stared at my father. You were going to have Michael move into my house? Without asking me. Not without asking, Dad said quickly. I was going to explain the situation, ask for your help. When? Before or after you'd already committed fraud? I thought once you understood the full picture, once you saw that the bank already had the lien and the money was spent, that you'd want to help manage the situation. Michael moving in would help make the case that this was a family property, a family decision. I looked at my brother. Did you know about this? About any of this? Michael shook his head. Not until last week. Dad told me about the loan, said he'd worked out a way to access some money. He said he was going to talk to you about me moving in to help with expenses. I thought it was legitimate. I swear, James, I didn't know he'd used your identity. I wanted to believe him. And you were just going to move into my house? Dad said you'd be on board with it. That we'd all discussed it. We never discussed anything. The full scope of Dad's plan was becoming clear. He'd stolen my identity to take out a fraudulent loan, planned to install my brother as a resident to complicate the legal situation, and would have presented it to me as a fait accompli. I felt sick. I'm leaving, I said. Don't call me. Don't come to my house. And if I see Michael anywhere near my property, I'm calling the police. James, please, Dad started. You destroyed any right you had to ask me for anything when you forged my signature. I walked out, got in my car, drove home on autopilot. Update 1, 2 weeks later, the mail theft discovery. The police report was filed the same day. Detective Sarah Martinez, the officer assigned to my case, has been incredibly helpful. She's seen family identity theft cases before and walked me through exactly what evidence I needed. The evidence was overwhelming. A fraudulent reverse mortgage documents with forged signatures. A bank statements showing disbursements to accounts I didn't own. A credit card statements for cards I never applied for. And my credit report showing 7 unauthorized accounts. A email correspondence with First National Lending Group. Detective Martinez was particularly interested in the mortgage broker Dad had worked with. When I gave her his name, her expression darkened. Apparently, he'd been on their radar for other questionable practices. The attorney I hired, Catherine Chen, who specializes in fraud cases, explained the process ahead. The police investigation would take months. In the meantime, we needed to dispute the fraudulent accounts and work on getting the reverse mortgage voided. The bank has been cooperative but cautious. Yes, they acknowledge the loan appears fraudulent. Yes, they're investigating. But they disbursed real money based on documents that appeared legitimate. Until fraud is proven in legal proceedings, the lien on my property remains. Catherine filed a fraud affidavit with the bank and disputes with all 3 credit bureaus. She warned me this process would take time and my credit would remain impacted for months. The good news, she told me, is that you caught this relatively quickly. 4 months of fraud is bad, but it's not years. The bad news is that your father spent the money, and recovering it will be nearly impossible if he doesn't have assets. What happens to my house? I asked. Once fraud is proven, the lien typically gets removed. The bank can't hold you responsible for a loan you didn't take out. They'll go after your father for the money. However, the process can take 6 months to a year. Legal limbo. Perfect. I haven't spoken to my father since the confrontation. He's called 15 times. I haven't answered. His voicemails range from apologetic to angry to manipulative. I blocked his number after 3 days. Michael has been different. He called me 4 days after the confrontation. James, I need you to know I had no idea, he said. I really had no idea. When Dad told me about the reverse mortgage, I didn't even understand what that was. But you were going to move into my house, I said. He told me you'd agreed. He showed me texts that he said were from you. Texts? I never texted him about this. I know that now. I think he faked them somehow. James, I'm not defending him. I just wanted you to know I wasn't in on it. I believed him. Michael and I had our issues, but he'd never been cruel. Okay. I believe you. For what it's worth, I'm moving out. I can't live with him anymore after this. That conversation ended better than I expected. But then things took another turn. Last week, I came home to find my mailbox broken open. Not just opened, the entire locking mechanism had been pried off. The mail inside was gone. I called the police and filed a report. I bought a new, more secure mailbox the next day. 2 days later, someone tried to break into my house. The back door had scratches around the lock, fresh damage to the doorframe. They hadn't gotten inside, but someone had definitely tried. Detective Martinez came out personally. Do you think it was your father? She asked. I don't know. Maybe. She gave me a look that said she didn't believe in coincidences. I installed security cameras that night. Front door, back door, driveway, both sides of the house. The kind that record to the cloud and send alerts to my phone. 3 days ago at 2:47 a.m., the cameras caught someone approaching my mailbox. The footage was grainy, it was dark, and the person wore a hoodie, but I could see them opening my mailbox, taking something out, and walking away. I sent the footage to Detective Martinez immediately. Then yesterday, Catherine called with news. James, we have a problem. I received a letter from an attorney representing your father. My stomach dropped. What kind of letter? A cease and desist. He's claiming you're harassing him, that the police investigation is based on false allegations, and that he's prepared to file a defamation suit if you don't drop the criminal complaint. I actually laughed. Defamation? He committed fraud. I know. This is a stalling tactic. He's trying to intimidate you. But James, you need to be prepared for your father to get aggressive. He's facing serious criminal charges. People do desperate things when cornered. What do I do? Nothing. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let me handle it. Continue cooperating with police. Document everything. And don't talk to your father. That was yesterday afternoon. Last night at 11:33 p.m., my security cameras caught my father at my front door. I was in bed when my phone buzzed, motion detected at front door. I pulled up the app and watched live as my father stood on my porch, clearly visible in the camera's night vision. Then he knocked. I didn't answer. I sat in bed, watching him on my phone screen, heart pounding. He knocked again. James, I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway. Please, we need to talk. I didn't move. James, please. I'm your father. You can't just shut me out like this. We're family. I recorded everything. He stood there for 5 minutes. Then he tried the doorknob. The lock held, but the fact that he tried sent a chill down my spine. Finally, he left. Walked back to his car, sat there for a few minutes, and drove away. I sent the footage to Detective Martinez at 7 a.m. She called back within the hour. James, I'm being honest with you. This case is escalating. Your father is showing up at your house at night, you've had attempted break-ins, your mail is being stolen. I want you to consider getting a restraining order. Will that help? It creates a legal barrier. If he violates it, he can be arrested immediately. Given the active fraud investigation, a judge would likely grant it. Catherine agreed. We filed for a temporary restraining order this morning. The hearing is scheduled for next week. I feel like I'm living in a nightmare. I can't relax in my own home. Every sound makes me jump. I keep checking the security cameras obsessively. I called Michael this morning and told him everything. Jesus, James. I'm so sorry. I had no idea he was doing any of this. Has he said anything to you about the investigation? He keeps saying you're overreacting. That families work things out, that you're going to regret involving the police. James, I think he genuinely believes he hasn't done anything wrong. That might be the scariest part. Dad isn't acting like someone who knows he committed a crime. He's acting like someone who's been wronged. The bank officially confirmed yesterday that they're treating the reverse mortgage as fraudulent. They've frozen the account and started their own investigation into the broker. That's good news for eventually getting the lien removed, but it also means the bank will aggressively pursue my father for the $45,000 already paid out. Which means his financial situation is about to get much worse. Which means he's going to get more desperate. Update 5 weeks later. The restraining order and criminal charges. The restraining order hearing happened 3 weeks ago. My father showed up with an attorney, a guy who looked like he specialized in DUIs and small-time criminal defense. Catherine and I presented the security footage, documentation of attempted break-ins, evidence of mail theft, and the timeline of harassment. The judge granted a temporary restraining order without much deliberation. Dad was ordered to stay at least 500 feet from me, my home, and my workplace. No contact, phone calls, emails, texts, third-party communication, nothing. I watched my father's face when the judge read the order. He looked genuinely shocked, like he couldn't believe this was happening. His attorney requested that Michael be exempted from the third-party communication restriction, arguing that I had a relationship with my brother independent of my father. The judge agreed, with the stipulation that Michael couldn't pass messages between us. Walking out of that courthouse should have felt like a victory. Instead, I just felt hollow. The criminal investigation moved faster than expected. Detective Martinez told me the mortgage broker who processed the fraudulent loan is cooperating with investigators. He's facing his own charges related to other fraudulent loans and is trying to cut a deal by providing information about his clients, including my father. According to Detective Martinez, the broker admitted he knew something was off about the application. The age discrepancy, the inconsistencies, my father pushing for expedited processing. But he processed it anyway because he got a commission. Your father paid him an extra $2,000 under the table to overlook the red flags, Detective Martinez told me. We have bank records showing the payment. Not just fraud. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Bribery. Multiple felonies. The district attorney's office officially filed charges 2 weeks ago. 3 counts of identity theft, 2 counts of fraud, 1 count of bribery. If convicted on all counts, my father is looking at 8 to 15 years in prison. 8 to 15 years. Michael called me the day after charges were filed. James, I think you should know what's going on. Dad's spiraling. He's convinced you're going to drop the charges. He keeps saying you're his son, that blood is thicker than water, that families don't destroy each other. I don't think he's processed that this is really happening. That's not my problem, Michael. I know. I'm not asking you to drop the charges. I'm just telling you he's not accepting reality, and I'm worried about what he might do. That conversation left me uneasy, but what could I do? Feel sorry for him? Then something happened that changed everything. Michael showed up at my house unannounced 2 weeks ago. I almost called the police, but he got out of his truck with his hands up. James, wait. I'm not here because of Dad. I need to talk to you about something urgent. Against my better judgment, I let him inside. Michael looked exhausted, stressed. He sat at my kitchen table and put his head in his hands. Dad's trying to do it again, he said finally. My blood ran cold. What? I stopped by his place yesterday to pick up some stuff, and I saw documents on his kitchen table. James, he's planning to take out another loan using your identity. He had applications printed out. Loan comparison worksheets. He's been researching online lenders. I called Detective Martinez immediately. She and another officer went to Dad's house that evening with a warrant. They found loan applications with my information. Multiple applications to different online lenders. He'd already submitted 2 of them. Detective Martinez called me that night. James, we arrested your father this evening. He's being held on additional charges of attempted identity theft. Given that he attempted this while under investigation for the same crime, and while under a restraining order, the judge denied bail. My father is in jail. He's been there for 2 weeks now, and according to Catherine, he'll remain there until trial. The prosecution argued successfully that he's both a flight risk and a continued threat to commit the same crimes. The bank has officially voided the reverse mortgage. The lien on my property has been removed. My credit report is slowly being corrected. Catherine says it'll take another few months for everything to be fully cleaned up, but the worst is over. Michael visited Dad in jail once and said he spent the entire visit insisting this was all a misunderstanding, that I'd come to my senses, that the charges would be dropped. He's completely detached from reality, Michael told me. He actually said he was protecting you by trying to take out those other loans. He said if he could get enough money, he could pay everything back and you'd see he was trying to help. The trial is scheduled for 3 months from now. Catherine says with the evidence they have, the broker's testimony, the bank records, the caught-on-camera attempted break-ins, the new loan applications found in his house, conviction is almost certain. My father will likely spend the next decade in prison. I've started seeing a therapist to process everything. The guilt, the anger, the grief for the father I wished I had versus the reality of who he actually is. She's helping me understand that I didn't destroy my family. My father did that himself through his choices. Michael and I have gotten closer through this. He got his own apartment, found a stable job, and we have dinner together once a week. He's dealing with his own guilt and anger about Dad's actions. I spent years thinking he was just unlucky, Michael said last week over pizza. That the world was unfair to him. I'm realizing now he created his own problems and blamed everyone else. The house feels like mine again. I've changed all the locks, upgraded the security system, and slowly begun to relax. The constant anxiety is fading. I'm sleeping through the night again. People ask if I regret pressing charges. The answer is no. What my father did was criminal. He stole my identity, committed fraud, attempted to steal my home, and when caught, tried to do it again. Those aren't the actions of someone who made a mistake. They're the actions of someone who feels entitled to take whatever they want, even from their own child. I pressed charges because it was the right thing to do. Because I deserve to live without fear in my own home. Because financial abuse is still abuse, even when it comes from family. The legal system is doing its job. The fraud has been corrected. My credit is recovering. My house is secure. And I'm learning that sometimes loving yourself means protecting yourself from the people who are supposed to love you most. Justice isn't always satisfying. It doesn't erase what happened. But it does provide accountability, and sometimes that's enough.